This woman is about to go through unimaginable, terrifying days. If you enjoy this kind of video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new stories. Lindsay Harper got up slowly, her feet touching the cold carpet, and for a moment she took a deep breath before facing the mirror. The reflection staring back at her revealed a mixture of determination and accumulated exhaustion. The alarm went off at 5:58 a.m. She always set it 2 minutes before 6. Small details like that made her feel like she still had control over something, and she desperately needed that feeling, even if it was just a temporary illusion. The coffee was already brewing in the kitchen. The warm aroma filled the small apartment on the 3rd floor of one of the older buildings in Northbury Heights, a mid-sized city along the East Coast. Outside, the sky was still struggling against the darkness of dawn as the city slowly began to wake up. Lindsay sat at the kitchen table, the steam from the coffee rising before her eyes as she mentally reviewed the presentation she had later that day. The last 3 months had been a silent marathon. The operations manager position at Sterling Technologies didn't open up often. It was the kind of opportunity that could completely change the course of her career and her life. Ever since Nathan Brooks had taken over as team coordinator, everything felt different. He wasn't like the other bosses she had before. Nathan had vision, decisiveness, and most of all, he saw potential in her that others had always ignored. For months, he had been preparing Lindsay for this moment. Revised spreadsheets, refined presentations, mock interviews. Nathan was investing in her professionally, though it hadn't gone unnoticed at home, because at home there was Derek, the husband who once made her smile with little notes on the fridge door, but who now seemed constantly on the edge of jealous rage. In recent years, affection had turned into surveillance, the questions multiplied, the silences grew longer, and arguments started over the smallest things. The sound of footsteps in the hallway interrupted Lindsay's thoughts. Derek appeared in the kitchen doorway, his face puffy with sleep, wearing that heavy expression of suspicion. "Leaving early again?" His voice carried a mixture of irony and irritation. Lindsay took a deep breath. She knew the script by heart. Today's the final review with Nathan. "The board will evaluate all the reports. It's important, Derek." He scratched his neck, leaning against the door frame, eyes half closed, watching her every move. "Nathan, always Nathan," he muttered. "I wonder how much reviewing really happens in these early morning meetings." She kept her composure. She had learned that defending herself too quickly only fueled his imagination. "It's work, that's all. I've explained this before." He approached her, his demeanor calm yet suffocating. "I trust you. I just don't trust him. All men are the same, Lindsay, and you." He paused for a moment, analyzing her face. "You're getting prettier every day. Do you think I don't notice how he looks at you?" A chill ran through Lindsay. She had heard this before, many times. "Let's not do this now, please," she pleaded, trying to end the conversation. Derek took a step back, raising his hands in a mock surrender. "Fine, go ahead. Shine in your meeting. Just remember, I'm always watching." The final comment lingered in the air. Like always, she grabbed her bag, arranged the folder with the reports, and left, feeling his eyes follow her all the way to the door. On her way to work, Lindsay's mind was spinning. Derek's words clung to her like splinters in her skin. The low volume of the radio filled the car with some song she couldn't even focus on. Sterling Technologies appeared ahead. The 6-story glass-fronted building reflected the first rays of the morning sun, standing as a silent symbol of ambition and struggle. Lindsay parked in the basement and headed straight to the conference room. Nathan was already waiting. He always arrived early. "Good morning, Lindsay. Ready?" he asked with that firm tone that somehow balanced pressure and encouragement. "Ready. I think I've reviewed these reports about 20 times," she replied with a nervous smile. Nathan watched her closely. "This is going to be your best presentation. Trust me." They began reviewing the final details, graphs, performance numbers, expansion projections. Lindsay knew every piece of data by heart. It was her work. But inside, Her mind continued battling. The shadow that followed her from home. As Nathan spoke, she noticed movement across the street. A black car parked, engine running. It was identical to Derek's model. Her heart raced. For a few seconds, she froze, trying to see who was behind the wheel. But the reflected light on the glass made it hard to tell. Was it just coincidence? Or was Derek spying on her? Nathan noticed her distraction. "Is everything okay?" "Yes," she answered quickly. "I just thought I saw something outside." Nathan didn't push. He simply returned to the numbers. But Lindsay's mind didn't return as easily. If it really was Derek, what was he doing there? She remembered the last incident, 3 weeks ago, when Derek randomly showed up in the company parking lot saying he wanted to surprise her with lunch. That day, she realized for the first time that he was monitoring her routine more and more. Her marriage was turning into an invisible cage, and the more she excelled at work, the deeper Derek seemed to sink into his own paranoia. Her phone vibrated on the table. It was a message from Derek. "Good luck on your presentation. Remember who's always been by your side." Lindsay's stomach flipped. He never texted during work hours. This was a warning, disguised as affection. "Let's review it one more time," Nathan said, trying to ease her with a natural tone. "No matter how many times we rehearse, it always helps." Lindsay nodded. But her focus was already fragmented. What she didn't know was that while they were reviewing those slides, what was moving outside that company was no longer just jealousy. Derek was beginning to cross a line with no return, and that line was about to be crossed. The air was heavy that morning. Lindsay woke up before the alarm even went off, eyes wide open in the dark, feeling her own heart beating with a restlessness she couldn't explain. It wasn't just anxiety over the important meeting ahead. It was something deeper, something unsettling. Next to her, Derek slept, but even his sleep seemed tense. His face was tight, fists clenched. He'd been like this for weeks, and every one of her career achievements seemed to push him further into his paranoia. She got up quietly and walked to the kitchen. While making coffee, she looked out the window. Outside, Northbury Heights was slowly coming to life. A small, upscale suburb in the fictional state of Delmere, a place that could easily exist on the American map, but didn't. The houses were neatly aligned, lawns trimmed, everything clean and symmetrical. But inside those homes, Lindsay knew. The facades never told the full story. She held the hot cup with both hands when she heard Derek's footsteps. The clock read 6:12 a.m. He entered the kitchen already dressed, something he rarely did this early. "Up early again?" he asked in a tone that sounded more like an accusation than a question. "Couldn't sleep," she replied, keeping her eyes on the cup. Derek silently watched her for a few seconds. The way his eyes scanned her felt like a constant inspection. "Another early meeting with Nathan today?" he finally asked, voice low but heavy with that familiar tension. She took a deep breath. "Today's the final review. The project's wrapping up. The board will review everything in the next few days." He nodded slightly, walking slowly toward the counter. "Funny. It seems like your entire life revolves around Nathan lately. Work, meetings, calls. That guy occupies more of your schedule than I do." The comment cut through her like a needle. "He's my boss, Derek. Of course we're talking a lot right now," she answered as neutrally as she could. Derek smirked. It wasn't a joyful smile. It was his typical smirk when he started spiraling into his twisted thoughts. "I just wonder if all this professional support of his isn't just a cover. All men are the same, Lindsay, you know that." She decided to end the conversation there. Justifying herself only fueled his twisted narrative. She grabbed her bag, said a quick "see you later," and left. Sterling Technologies was located in a new business district of the city called Summit District. Modern glass towers, trendy coffee shops, and wide streets, a stark contrast to the heavy atmosphere Lindsay carried inside. When she arrived, Nathan was already in the conference room, adjusting some slides on the projector. "Good morning," he said in his usual calm yet focused tone. "Good morning," Lindsay replied, forcing a small smile. Nathan noticed the tired look on her face, but as usual, respected her space. "Today we'll review every detail. The presentation has to be bulletproof. The board is tough, and they're still deciding between you and Patrick. Patrick Lewis was the other strong candidate for the position, competent but clearly uncomfortable with the idea of being passed over for Lindsay. As they reviewed growth, charts, and new contract projections, Lindsay's mind occasionally drifted. On her way to the office, she thought she'd seen a familiar car parked near the side entrance, a black sedan identical to Derek's. Coincidence or surveillance? "Lindsay," Nathan called, noticing her distant gaze. "Sorry, I'm here," she quickly replied, refocusing. Nathan didn't press further. "Is everything okay?" She hesitated. Part of her wanted to spill everything, part of her knew she shouldn't. Just a bit tense, that's all. Nathan nodded, understanding. He was direct when it came to work, but observant enough to sense something was happening in Lindsay's personal life. Yet, he never crossed professional boundaries. When they finished, Nathan stood up. "We'll review one more time tomorrow. After that, it's just waiting for the board's final decision. And Lindsay," he looked at her seriously, "no matter what the outcome is, your work here has been impeccable. As far as I'm concerned, you've already earned this promotion." His words brought a small sense of relief amid the mental storm. "Thank you, Nathan. That means a lot." Later, as she left the office, the sky had started to turn golden as the sun began to set. Lindsay was walking to the parking lot when her phone vibrated. A message from Derek. "I'm waiting for you at home. I prepared something special for us. Don't be late." Normally, he didn't send messages like this. It felt odd. She got in her car and drove the 15 minutes back to Northbury Heights. When she arrived, she noticed a dim light coming from the living room. Candles were lit, a table was set with wine and 2 plates. Derek was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove. "Surprise," he said when he heard the door. Lindsay smiled faintly, but it was more polite than genuine. "What's all this?" she asked. "I just wanted to do something nice for you. I feel like we've been distant lately. And with all this stress about the promotion, you deserve to relax." She sat at the table, stomach churning. The last thing she wanted was to play out a perfect evening. "I know I've been hard on you," he said, pouring the wine. "I just worry about you, about the kind of people who might come near you as you move up." Lindsay held the glass but didn't take a sip. "I'm fine, Derek, and I trust my own judgment." He sat across from her, staring intensely. "I just want to make sure you won't trade me for anything or anyone." That sentence carried much more weight than it seemed. After dinner, Derek excused himself, saying he needed to grab something from the bedroom. As Lindsay started clearing the table, she noticed something odd on his office desk, a small digital camera. Curious, she turned it on. There were only a few photos, but what she saw made her blood run cold. Photos of her and Nathan outside the company, clearly taken from a distance, at different times, always when they were leaving after work. Lindsay quickly turned off the camera, placed it back where she found it, and tried to stay composed. Her entire body was trembling. There was no longer any doubt. This wasn't just jealousy. It was surveillance, and what she didn't know yet was that the worst was only beginning. The night was long. Lindsay lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening to Derek's heavy breathing beside her. The images from the camera kept playing in her mind like an endless loop. He had been watching for a long time. The fear was starting to take on a new shape. It was no longer just insecurity or suspicion. It was control, a silent, methodical control, built step by step, disguised as care and concern. The clock read 5:42 a.m. when she got up without even waiting for the alarm. She walked to the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and let the cold water run over her hands. Trying to organize her thoughts, she needed to stay calm, at least until she could fully understand what Derek was truly capable of. At Sterling Technologies, the pace was intense that morning. The team was making final adjustments to the project. Lindsay tried to stay focused, though her stomach was in knots. Nathan noticed her tension, as he had many times in recent days. "Lindsay," he said softly, approaching her, "do you want to take a break? You don't seem well." She forced a smile, as she had been doing for weeks. "I'm just tired. It's been a long week. Nathan looked at her for a moment, seeing through her words. If you ever need to talk, outside of work, I mean, you know you can count on me. His words were sincere. Nathan always kept things professional, but there was genuine concern in his eyes, I know. Thank you, Lindsay replied with a slight nod. While they talked, her phone vibrated. Another message from Derek. Everything okay over there? Nathan's not being too hard on you, is he? Let me know if you need anything. Her hand trembled. He knew exactly who she was with and when. She slowly looked up and, on impulse, glanced out the window. A black car was parked on the side street, just like on the other days. Same model, same distance. This time it wasn't paranoia. Derek was there, watching. Nathan noticed her glance. Lindsay? She looked away, trying to cover. Nothing, just distracted. But her mind could no longer pretend. At the end of the workday, Lindsay made a decision. She needed to have a serious conversation with Derek. Set boundaries before things spiraled completely out of control. She arrived home around 7 p.m. Derek was sitting in the living room, watching TV as if everything were perfectly normal. Hey, babe, he greeted her with a calm smile. Lindsay set her bag down and got straight to the point. Derek, we need to talk. He looked at her with a small smile, but there was something unsettling in his eyes. A strange glimmer. Of course. About what? About you following me, taking pictures, spying on me at work. The smile faded, but his voice remained calm. Oh, so you went through the camera? She froze for a moment. He didn't deny it. On the contrary, he almost seemed relieved to finally talk about it. I did it because I love you, he said in an almost serene tone. I don't want anyone taking you away from me. I don't trust those guys. You're all I have, Lindsay. She stepped back slightly, her heart racing. Derek, this is sick. You're crossing every line. I'm not your property. He slowly got up, walking toward her. His voice remained calm, which made it even more terrifying. I won't lose you. I can't. If Nathan thinks he can. He paused, taking a deep breath. I'm just protecting myself. Protecting us. Lindsay felt her stomach turn. There is no us without respect. Derek stopped right in front of her. For a moment, his face seemed to tense, as if he were fighting to hold something back. I've always respected you. I just want to make sure no one destroys what we built. The tension was suffocating. That night, Lindsay locked the bedroom door when she went to sleep. It was the first time. The next morning, as she left the house, Lindsay noticed Derek's black car was no longer parked where it usually sat for days. It should have been a relief, but instead, it made things worse. The disappearance meant something else. He was now acting unpredictably. When she arrived at the office, Nathan was waiting for her outside the building. Lindsay, we need to talk. His tone made her stomach drop. What happened? Nathan held up his phone, showing her the screen. An anonymous message had been sent to his corporate number. Be careful with Lindsay. She's not who she seems. Her blood drained. Her stomach flipped. I got this last night, Nathan continued. I don't know who sent it. No registered number. Lindsay covered her mouth, trying to hold back the panic. I know who sent it. Nathan looked confused. What do you mean? She took a deep breath. The words had to come out. Nathan. It's my husband. For the first time, she shattered the wall of silence. And with that confession, without realizing it, Lindsay was cracking open something much bigger. Because what was coming would be far worse than she could imagine. Nathan's office was silent, the low hum of the air conditioning filling the room. Lindsay sat across from him, her hands restless, fingers intertwining and separating as she tried to organize the storm inside her head. For the first time, she exposed the truth. It's your husband? Nathan repeated, still trying to absorb it. Yes, Lindsay confirmed, her throat tight. Derek, he has serious issues. It started with silly jealousy, but it's escalated. He follows me, takes pictures, watches me. And now he's trying to drag you into it. Nathan took a deep breath, his eyes steady. Lindsay, this is serious, very serious. I know, that's why I'm telling you now. I couldn't keep it bottled up anymore. For a few seconds, Nathan was silent, weighing his words carefully. Listen, it might be time for you to get help. This isn't going to stop on its own. Lindsay knew that, and that was her greatest fear. Derek showed no signs of backing off. The more she advanced in her career, the deeper he sank into his madness. I've thought about it, she admitted, but I also know what he's capable of. Derek has a side most people have never seen. Nathan looked at her seriously. Lindsay, you're not safe. She swallowed hard, fighting back the tears. I'm trying to keep control. I don't want to involve the police yet or cause a scandal. Nathan remained silent for a few seconds before leaning forward. I'll be blunt. If you need an attorney, security, any support outside of work, I can help. But this can't continue. And if he tries to hurt you or me, I won't just stand by. Lindsay nodded. His support offered a small relief in the middle of the storm, but it also made her even more worried. Derek wouldn't handle anyone interfering well. In the following days, Lindsay tried to keep her routine. At work, she did everything she could not to show what she was enduring outside the office. But inside, the tension only grew. Derek, meanwhile, became more unpredictable. He started calling her during work hours, texting during meetings, bombarding her with questions when she got home. The questions always revolved around the same theme. How was it with Nathan today? Was he alone? With you? Who else was in the room? No matter how many answers she gave, Derek always found a way to spin a new narrative inside his head. On Thursday that week, as she left Sterling Technologies around 8 p.m., Lindsay noticed something strange. Derek's car was parked a block away. Without being seen, she slowed her pace, watching from a distance. That's when she saw it. Derek wasn't alone. There was a man in the passenger seat. An unfamiliar face. They were talking, gesturing. The other man seemed to be explaining something, drawing shapes with his hands, like someone outlining a plan. A chill ran down Lindsay's spine. Who was this man? And why was Derek meeting secretly with someone while pretending to be home? Without being noticed, she backed away and circled around through another street, heading straight to the side parking lot. Inside her car, hands trembling, she tried to breathe deeply. Her instincts screamed that this was no longer just jealousy. A new level of danger was emerging. The next day, Nathan called Lindsay into his office before the final project review. I received another message, he said, showing his phone. Be careful. She's using you. Don't trust her. Now things were getting more aggressive. Lindsay felt her throat tighten. There was no way to keep pretending. He's getting worse, Nathan. Much worse. And last night I saw something. Nathan frowned. What? Derek was parked near here with a man, someone I've never seen before. They seemed like they were planning something. Nathan exhaled deeply. The danger level was rising. Lindsay, this has crossed every line. This isn't just jealousy anymore. He's plotting something. You need protection today. I know. She ran her hands down her face, exhausted. I never imagined it would get to this point. I know a trustworthy attorney, and I have contacts with a private security firm. If you authorize it, I can have someone watching over you discreetly just for your protection. Lindsay hesitated, but at that moment she realized she was losing control of the situation. Do it, Nathan. Please. Nathan grabbed his phone and started making calls. From that moment forward, Lindsay was no longer just fighting for a promotion. She was fighting to survive her own husband. But the first major shock was still to come. That evening, Lindsay received an unexpected phone call. Mrs. Harper? Asked a male voice on the line. Yes. Who is this? Detective Jonathan Mercer, Delmere. Police Department. We've received an anonymous report involving your name. I need you to come down to the station tomorrow morning for questioning. Her heart seized. Anonymous report? But about what? I'd prefer to explain in person. The call ended. Lindsay sat down on the bed in shock. The game had officially changed. Derek wasn't just watching. He was setting her up, and his first strike had just landed. The night barely passed. Lindsay didn't sleep. Detective Mercer's call replayed in her mind over and over. She tried to anticipate Derek's next move, but it was impossible to predict someone who had already crossed every boundary. At 7:30 a.m., she parked in front of the Delmere police station. The old red brick building felt more suffocating than any place she'd ever had to enter. Nathan had insisted on going with her, but she refused. She still wanted to maintain control over at least part of the situation. Inside, she was led to a small interview room where Detective Mercer was waiting. He was tall, graying, professional, but not cold. "Mrs. Harper, thank you for coming," he said, pulling out a chair for her. "Before anything else, I want to make clear, you're not under investigation. We're simply following up on an anonymous report." "What kind of report?" Lindsay asked, trying to keep her voice calm while her heart raced. Mercer opened a folder, flipping through some papers on the table. "We've received information alleging that Mr. Nathan Brooks, your supervisor, has been coercing you inside the company for personal favors in exchange for career advancement. That there's been an unauthorized relationship, let's say." Lindsay froze. "That's a lie. Nathan would never—" The words nearly choked her. "I understand," Mercer said, keeping a neutral tone. "But I need to hear your version officially. The anonymous tipster reported months of private meetings after hours, one-on-one reviews, and manipulation of the internal promotion process." Lindsay clasped her hands tightly in her lap, struggling to contain her outrage. "We worked together. The meetings were strictly work-related. The entire process is fully documented. He never coerced me into anything. If anything, he's been nothing but professionally supportive." Mercer nodded, taking careful notes. "I need to be transparent with you. This tip was submitted in extreme detail. Dates, times, locations. Photos were included in the packet," he said, sliding several images toward her. The photos, the same ones Lindsay had seen on Derek's camera. But now they were in the hands of the police, part of an anonymous dossier. "This came from my husband," she whispered. Mercer raised an eyebrow. "Your husband? He's dangerously jealous and obsessive. He took those photos. He's trying to destroy me. And he's trying to destroy Nathan." For the first time, Mercer showed a hint of surprise. "Do you have proof it was him?" "The camera. It's still in the house. I found these exact photos on it." Mercer quickly took notes. "Very well, we'll need that camera. I don't know if it's still there. I have no idea what he might have done with it." The detective paused for a few seconds, thinking. "Mrs. Harper, you need to understand. These accusations could damage both your career and your supervisors. If what you're telling me is true and your husband is behind this, we can open an investigation against him for defamation, harassment, and stalking, but we'll need hard evidence." Lindsay felt the crushing weight of the situation. It wasn't just about protecting herself emotionally anymore. Now she had to protect her career and the people around her. "I'll get the camera. Today." Mercer walked her to the exit. "Be careful, Mrs. Harper. People like this, when they start losing control, they make dangerous decisions." Lindsay left the station with a tight knot in her throat. The air felt heavier. The streets of Delmere, once so familiar, now looked filled with invisible traps. When she arrived home later that afternoon, the house was eerily quiet. Derek wasn't there. She moved fast. She rushed to the office, searched the desk, but the camera was gone. She tore through drawers, cabinets, and eventually reached the toolbox tucked in the back of the built-in closet. And there it was, hidden. Beneath a rag, she found the camera. She powered it on. The files were still intact. The photos, the dates, the logs, living proof of his stalking. She packed everything into a backpack, locked the closet, and rushed straight to Nathan's office. Soon as she walked in, he stood up immediately. "Are you okay?" I was worried. "I couldn't call you sooner, but I got it," she said, pulling the camera from her bag and showing him. Nathan examined the device. With this, he won't be able to sustain his false claims. Lindsay exhaled deeply. But her relief was short-lived. Her phone vibrated. A message from Derek. "Think you can get rid of me that easily? I've always been one step ahead, Lindsay." Her stomach churned. Nathan read the message alongside her, his face darkening. He's monitoring us. Somehow he knows every move. I don't know how he's doing it. I left the house without him knowing. He wasn't there. Nathan glanced around, thinking. It could be a tracker on the car, the phone. He's crossed. Every line. The panic inside Lindsay swelled. It was like fighting a shadow. Wherever she went, Derek always seemed to know. And what she didn't yet know was that his next move would be the most dangerous of all. Nathan spent that entire night taking action. While Lindsay tried and failed to get some rest, he contacted his trusted attorney, forwarded the camera footage to Detective Mercer, and arranged for the building's security system to be reinforced. This was no longer just psychological tension. There was now real, physical danger. Before sunrise, Lindsay was woken by her vibrating phone. An unknown number. Hello? On the other end was Mercer's voice. Mrs. Harper, good morning. We need to meet urgently. The situation escalated overnight. Lindsay's heart pounded. What happened? A formal complaint was filed. Your husband, he's accused you of conspiring in corporate fraud with Mr. Nathan Brooks. He submitted forged documents claiming that you both embezzled funds from the company. The ground vanished beneath her feet. Derek was crossing new lines. Documents, that's insane. I know, Mercer replied. The evidence is weak, but since it's been formally submitted, the company's ethics department will have to open an internal investigation. And since it concerns your potential promotion, things just got a lot more complicated. Now, the personal harassment was bleeding directly into her career. At Sterling Technologies, tension filled the air. Everyone seemed aware that something was happening, even if they didn't know exactly what. The stares Lindsay received that morning were different. Longer, more suspicious. Nathan waited for her inside his private office. I've already heard, he said as she entered. HR was notified. They're launching a preliminary investigation until this is cleared up. This is exactly what he wanted, Lindsay said, running her hands down her face. To isolate me, to turn everyone against me. Nathan approached her, his gaze steady. We have the real evidence. The photos, the camera, his messages. And we have Mercer's help. This won't last. But even with his support, Lindsay felt that Derek was always one step ahead. It was like battling someone who no longer feared consequences. Later that evening, as Lindsay left the building with Nathan and one of the newly hired security guards, she spotted a familiar car parked at the corner. The same dark sedan. But this time, the passenger window was slightly open. Behind the tinted glass, she caught a glimpse of the man she'd seen with Derek the other night. It was real. He wasn't acting alone. Nathan noticed too. See? He whispered as they quickened their pace. He's surrounding you, trying to pressure. Lindsay felt the fear rise, tightening in her throat like a knot. Derek didn't just want to separate her from Nathan. He wanted to completely destabilize her, to leave her with nothing, no career, no dignity, no safety. They reached the parking lot and got into the car. As the security escort drove them through a side street, Lindsay kept looking in the rearview mirror. But the car was already gone. Later that night, Nathan suggested she sleep at his house. You'll be safer here for now. The police are already monitoring the area. Lindsay hesitated, but deep down, she knew staying alone at her apartment would be dangerous. Nathan's house was in a secluded residential neighborhood, surrounded by cameras and equipped with a modern alarm system. Yet even with all the extra protection, her nerves didn't settle. Around 3 a.m., a sharp noise jolted them awake. Something had hit the side of the house. Nathan quickly got up, grabbed his phone, and activated the silent security alarm. Stay here, he whispered, trying to calm her. Minutes later, the security team arrived and swept the perimeter. In the side yard, they discovered a shattered bottle with a rag tied around its neck, a failed attempt at a Molotov cocktail. He tried to set the house on fire, one of the guards said. Lindsay's entire body froze. This was no longer a theory. It was a direct physical attack. Detective Mercer arrived within minutes, alerted by the security team's call. Now we have more. Then stalking, he said, inspecting the remains of the bottle. He's escalating. And fast. Lindsay hugged herself, her legs weakening. He wants me to break, to surrender, but I won't," she said, her voice shaking. Mercer looked at her with growing seriousness. "Mrs. Harper, I have to be very clear with you. We can't wait any longer. We're opening a criminal investigation against your husband. He's crossed every legal boundary." Nathan placed his hands on her shoulders. "Now he will be the one being hunted, Lindsay." And at that moment, the war between them had finally shifted sides. The predator had just become the prey. The sun was barely rising over Delmere, and the city woke up under a tension that only Lindsay, Nathan, and Detective Mercer fully understood. From this day forward, the situation was no longer a hidden domestic conflict. An official investigation warrant had been issued for Derek Harper. At the station, Mercer gathered his team. The accusations were no longer circumstantial. Attempted arson, systematic stalking, slander, and corporate defamation. The police had more than enough evidence to pursue Derek. Lindsay was at Nathan's office, accompanied by the company's legal counsel. Documents were submitted, statements recorded, and Sterling Technologies officially acknowledged that neither she nor Nathan were guilty of any wrongdoing. The internal investigation against them was closed. Lindsay's reputation was clear. However, her long-awaited promotion to operations manager had still not been formally confirmed. For now, the company took a diplomatic stance. "We must wait for all legal matters to be fully resolved before making any final decisions." Lindsay no longer had the strength to fight for it. All she wanted now was peace. "They haven't forgotten about you," Nathan said one morning in the office. "They're just letting the dust settle." "I know," Lindsay answered with a faint, tired smile. "I just don't want to fight anymore, not right now." Nathan understood. The woman who had spent months being watched, threatened, and nearly killed, now wanted only one thing: peace. Even so, Lindsay's name continued to circulate in the corridors. Some admired her strength. Others whispered, speculating about her recent past. As always, the real battle wasn't in court, but in the corporate shadows. Certain colleagues, once friendly, now treated her with caution. Not openly hostile, but with an uncomfortable distance, as if afraid that association with her might damage their own standing. Nathan noticed. They don't know how to handle this. The name Derek Harper has become a burden throughout this entire building. Lindsay nodded. "And I still carry that name." "Hopefully not for much longer," Nathan said with a sigh. She gazed out the window at the city below. "I've already filed for divorce. Once it's finalized, I'll leave that name behind." Days later, Sterling's legal department called Lindsay and Nathan into a meeting. "We're conducting a full compliance audit across all departments," the company attorney explained. "Since both your names were involved in depositions, even as victims, the board wants to formalize a release agreement to close the case internally." "A release?" Lindsay questioned. "Am I being penalized?" "Not at all. This is purely procedural. Once you sign, any future inquiries cannot reopen these matters. It protects both you and the company," Nathan added. "Basically, they're shielding everyone, cleaning the record." Without hesitation, Lindsay signed. One more weight lifted. In the following days, a new emotional layer began weighing on her. Emptiness. For months, Lindsay had lived in constant survival mode. Now, with the immediate threat contained, the silence felt foreign. Her body still expected the next attack, a different kind of trauma. Nathan, always sensitive, tried to help her through it. "It's not weakness to feel empty, Lindsay. It's just your body adjusting to living without war. I've gotten so used to resisting, I don't even know how to relax," she admitted. "You'll learn, little by little. You've earned that right." On Friday afternoon, just as the work week seemed to finally be closing in peace, Sterling's CEO walked unexpectedly into the conference room where Lindsay and Nathan were wrapping up a report. "May I interrupt for a moment?" he asked casually, but with purpose. "Of course, Mr. Bennett," Nathan replied. The CEO sat at the table with a subtle smile. "The board met this morning. We've made a decision that's been delayed far too long." He looked directly at Lindsay. "Effective Monday, you are officially being named Operations Manager." Lindsay needed a few seconds to process his words. "Mr. Bennett. No speeches, the CEO interrupted with a friendly gesture. This promotion has been yours by merit from the start. We will not let the past taint this company's decisions. Nathan smiled softly, relief in his eyes. Congratulations. Lindsay, you earned it. She smiled, her eyes watering. Thank you. Truly. Now it wasn't Derek controlling her life anymore. No more threats, no more manipulation, no more fear. Now it was her, standing tall, owning her path. But as Lindsay celebrated this long-awaited victory, she had no idea. There was still one loose thread left to be pulled, and when it was, it would unravel everything. The first light of morning barely touched Delmere's sky, and Nathan's house was already under full alert. Mercer and his team maintained constant surveillance, monitoring every movement via the still-active decoy GPS tracker in Lindsay's car. The strategy seemed to be working. Derek still believed Lindsay was exposed, and followed the planted signal to a remote area outside Oakford, the neighboring town where he had last been seen. But everyone knew. When a man like Derek realizes he's about to lose everything, he doesn't run. He attacks. While the task force tightened the perimeter, Lindsay tried to stay strong inside the house, but the anxiety was suffocating. Her trembling hands betrayed her constant fear, even surrounded by security. Nathan stayed close, doing his best to maintain calm. You're safe here. There's no way for him to reach you, but even he didn't fully believe that. Derek had proven more than once his ability to cross every line. Around 3 p.m., Mercer received the update that shifted everything. He turned off the tracker, the detective said tensely over the phone with Nathan. What do you mean? It's gone. Either he discovered the plan or he's ready to move. But one way or another, he's coming. Nathan hung up and looked directly at Lindsay. He knows. He's coming here. As night fell, the house transformed into a silent war base. Armed private, security agents were positioned at strategic points. Mercer and 2 undercover officers coordinated the final defense plan. But Derek was more cunning than anyone had imagined. Shortly after 11 p.m., one of the security guards spotted movement on the external cameras. A white van parked 2 blocks away, turned off its headlights and idled for several minutes. Mercer analyzed the live footage carefully. He's not alone. Nathan frowned. Someone's with him? We're not entirely sure. But based on the movement, at least 2 people. Suddenly, the side cameras lost signal. Seconds later, the internal circuits began to flicker. We're being digitally attacked, one of the security techs reported. Mercer had expected something like this. He hired someone to disable our system. Well played, Mr. Harper, but not enough. Even with compromised equipment, the armed agents stayed in position. They knew the real attack wouldn't be technological. It would be physical. Exactly midnight, one of the side motion detectors triggered. Within seconds, the floodlights illuminated the yard. 2 masked men appeared, sprinting along the house's side, armed with crowbars and backpacks. Nathan quickly pulled Lindsay into a secure panic room while Mercer and his team advanced through the house, armed and ready. Outside, Derek appeared. His face was uncovered, his eyes locked on the house. "Lindsay!" he screamed, voice dripping with hatred. "Come out! End this now!" Mercer observed his every move through the few remaining camera feeds. "Don't fire yet," he ordered. "Let him step into the capture zone." Derek advanced toward the front door with an almost supernatural calm. But before he could reach it, police cruisers swarmed the street, lights flashing and sirens muffled. Armed officers jumped out and subdued him within seconds. The 2 accomplices, trying to break in through the side, were also quickly overpowered by Mercer's agents. Derek struggled briefly, but was restrained, cuffed, and pinned against the squad car. "You haven't won, Lindsay!" he screamed desperately as he was dragged away. "This isn't over." Watching from the reinforced panic room window, Lindsay finally exhaled, for the first time in months. It wasn't peace yet, but it was the beginning of the end. Minutes later, with the situation secured, Mercer entered the room where Lindsay and Nathan waited. "It's over," he said, visible relief on his face. "It's official. He'll face charges for every crime he committed, and his accomplices as well. Lindsay sat down, her legs finally giving way beneath her. I didn't think I'd survive this, Mercer. He was always so far ahead. The detective allowed himself a small, reserved smile. People like him believe they're always in control until they leave a loose thread. Tonight, he left one. Nathan squeezed her shoulder. Now it's your turn to rebuild, Lindsay. She gazed out the window, police lights still flashing in the street. For the first time, she could see the other side of the storm, but the most important chapter was still to come. Weeks passed after Derek's arrest. Lindsay was finally able to return to her apartment in Northbury Heights, but any sense of normalcy still felt distant. Though the immediate danger was gone, the inner scars remained. The legal process against Derek moved quickly. The evidence collected by Mercer, testimonies, recordings, tracking data, and the attempted break-in formed a rock-solid case. On top of that, the two accomplices, under interrogation, confessed they had been directly hired by Derek to scare Nathan and regain control of his wife, as one of them put it. Derek now faced years in prison. At Sterling Technologies, the internal investigation against Lindsay and Nathan was officially closed. The board acknowledged it had all been part of Derek's personal vendetta. Her professional record was clear. However, the long-awaited operations manager position still hadn't been formally confirmed. For the time being, the company maintained a diplomatic posture. We must wait for all legal proceedings to conclude before making any definitive decisions. Lindsay no longer had the strength to push for it. All she wanted was to breathe. "Don't think they've forgotten about you," Nathan said one morning at the office. "They're just waiting for the dust to settle." "I know," Lindsay answered, with a light smile still heavy with exhaustion. "I just don't want to fight anymore." Nathan understood. The woman who had spent months being stalked, threatened, and nearly killed now sought something simple: peace. Even so, Lindsay's name continued to echo through the company. Some admired her strength. Others whispered behind closed doors, speculating about recent events. As always, the real battlefield wasn't the courtroom. It was the corporate corridors. Some colleagues who once had been friendly now kept a cautious distance. Not openly hostile, but guarded, afraid that associating with her might put their own positions at risk. Nathan noticed. They don't know how to handle this. The name Derek Harper became a stain over the entire company. Lindsay nodded. "And I still carry that name." "Not for much longer, hopefully," Nathan said softly. She looked out the window at the city. "I've filed for divorce. Once it's finalized, I'll leave that name behind." One day, the company's legal department summoned Lindsay and Nathan for a meeting. "We're conducting a compliance audit across all departments," explained the company attorney. "Since both of your names were involved in depositions, even as victims, the board wants to formally close the internal matter through a release." "Agreement? A release?" Lindsay asked. "Am I being penalized?" "Not at all. This is purely procedural. Once signed, no future questions can reopen these events. It protects you and us." Nathan added, "Basically, they're protecting everyone and cleaning the slate." Lindsay signed without hesitation, one more weight off her shoulders. In the following days, another emotional weight started surfacing: emptiness. For months, Lindsay had lived in a state of constant vigilance. Now, with the threat contained, the silence itself felt disorienting. Her body still anticipated the next attack, a different kind of trauma. Nathan, always understanding, helped her navigate this new phase. "It's not weakness to feel empty, Lindsay. It's just your body adjusting to living without war. I've grown so used to resisting that I don't even know how to relax," she admitted. "You'll learn. Slowly. You've earned it." On Friday afternoon, just as the work week was wrapping up peacefully, Sterling's CEO made a surprise appearance in the conference room, where Lindsay and Nathan were finishing a report. "May I interrupt for a moment?" he asked, casual but purposeful. "Of course, Mr. Bennett," Nathan replied. The CEO sat with a subtle smile. "The board met this morning. We've made a decision that's long overdue." He looked directly at Lindsay. Effective. Monday, you are officially being promoted to operations manager. Lindsay needed a moment to absorb the words. Mr. Bennett, no speeches, the CEO said, gesturing kindly. This promotion has been yours by merit from the start. We won't allow the past to stain the decisions of this company. Nathan smiled gently, relief in his expression. Congratulations, Lindsay. You did it. She smiled, tears welling in her eyes. Thank you. Truly. Finally, it was no longer Derek controlling her life. No more threats, no more blackmail, no more fear, no more manipulation. Now it was her, standing tall, owning her path. But as Lindsay celebrated this long-awaited victory, what she didn't yet know was that one final thread was still dangling. And when it got pulled, it would unravel everything. The weekend following her promotion was the first in months where Lindsay woke up without a fresh crisis weighing on her mind. On Saturday morning, she sat on the balcony of her Northbury Heights apartment, coffee in hand, the soft autumn sun warming her face. She finally felt something close to peace. Nathan also seemed more relaxed. Their connection had grown far beyond just professional respect. It was a bond built under pressure, yet solid, one that no corporate report could ever describe. And yet, amid the calm, one thought kept tugging at Lindsay's mind. How had everything been orchestrated so perfectly? Derek was obsessive, controlling, unwell. But some of the moves over the past months had been unusually strategic. The corporate complaints, the fabricated documents, the forged financial transactions. Derek was capable of stalking and emotional manipulation, but the more sophisticated attacks, they seemed to come from somewhere else. It was as if someone had poured fuel on his madness. Nathan had thought the same many times but never voiced it. Until now. That morning, Lindsay finally asked Nathan, what if Derek didn't do all of this alone? He looked at her as if he had been waiting for that very question. I've wondered that too. From the beginning, some of it felt too calculated. Even with his sick obsession, someone may have been advising him, or using his obsession as a weapon. But who? Lindsay asked almost in a whisper. Someone who stood to gain if you were pushed out of the company, Nathan said calmly. Someone from inside. The air thickened between them. They locked eyes, both fully aware they were standing at the edge of another dangerous discovery. Around 10 a.m., the intercom buzzed. It was Mercer. May I come up? He asked directly, with his usual serious professional expression. Only now, visibly disturbed. Minutes later, seated in her living room, Mercer got straight to the point. We found something new in the investigation, something we didn't expect. Lindsay tensed. What? Mercer placed a small stack of freshly printed documents on the table. During our financial investigation into Derek's accomplices, we traced payments made by a third party that funded many of the illegal services Derek hired. A large portion of the money didn't come from Derek's accounts. Nathan leaned in, narrowing his eyes. Whose money was it? Mercer flipped the top page. The name was clear. Patrick Lewis. The shock was immediate. Patrick, the same coworker, the quiet rival. Always polite, always distant, always lurking in the background. Lindsay leaned back, both confused and furious. Patrick? That makes no sense. He always acted so indifferent. He never even mentioned what was happening in my personal life, not even when everything blew up. Exactly, Mercer replied firmly. That was his strategy. He wanted no one to suspect his involvement. While Derek handled the visible dirty work, Patrick quietly manipulated things from behind. Nathan quickly connected the dots, furious. Patrick was the direct competitor for Lindsay's manager position. When she became the frontrunner, he lost his shot. When Derek started the accusations, Patrick took advantage and quietly fueled the chaos, Mercer continued. He was the one who helped Derek acquire corporate information used for the false financial allegations. Patrick also bankrolled the initial legal counsel who structured the fraudulent charges against both of you. Without Patrick, Derek wouldn't have had the resources to sustain the financial fraud that delayed your promotion for so long. Lindsay shook her head in disbelief. He knew that as long as the scandal remained active, the company would hesitate. To promote me, he was trying to wear me down until I gave up. And he nearly succeeded, Nathan added. Mercer finished. Patrick's best move was hiding in the shadows, letting Derek take the public fall, using Derek's obsession as a shield. If Derek went to prison, as he now has, Patrick would remain, touched simply, a co-worker waiting for the company to resolve things. The true scale of the conspiracy now revealed itself. It wasn't just jealousy. It wasn't only obsession. It was conspiracy. Hours later, Mercer contacted Sterling's legal department. Soon, the board was gathered and called Patrick into an emergency meeting. The evidence was now in CEO Bennett's hands, who could finally see how deep the rot inside his own company ran. Patrick's termination was immediate. No negotiation, no explanations. Shortly after, Sterling Technologies issued an official press release to the media. Nathan walked Lindsay to her new office, now truly free of shadows. "I still don't know if I feel victorious," she admitted, staring out over the city through the large glass window. "You don't need to feel victorious," Nathan replied honestly. "Sometimes it's not about winning. It's simply about not letting them break you." She turned to him with a quiet, sincere smile. "Now I can breathe," Nathan smiled back. "Now you can live." And in that moment, without speeches, applause, or drama, Lindsay finally crossed the finish line, not just as a survivor, but as someone free. 2 years had passed since that day at Grayson's. Much had changed, much had grown, and above all, much had been built. East Haven was now a culinary reference point in the region. The restaurant Carter & Commanders under Liam's leadership not only exceeded initial expectations but had won major awards, drawing glowing reviews and customers from across the state. Reservations were booked weeks in advance. Magazines and newspapers published feature stories about the young chef who had risen from the hot line of a traditional kitchen to become one of the state's most respected culinary names. But what many didn't know was the long, brutal path that led him here. One autumn afternoon, Liam walked through the dining room as the team prepped for the evening service. Stations were aligned, mise en place was on point, and the sounds of clinking pans and utensils created the quiet rhythm of the kitchen. Mason, now his sous chef, approached with a grin. "The State Awards Committee confirmed they're coming next week." Liam nodded. "It'll be just another night, Mason." "Another night for you," Mason chuckled. "For the rest of us, it still feels surreal." Liam gave a soft smile. "The only thing surreal is how much work we still have." Later, after closing, with the dining room empty, Liam walked to the large glass sign at the entrance. The name engraved there carried a weight far beyond personal pride. Carter & Cummer, Fine Dining. It wasn't just his name, it was the symbol of everything he had endured. The silent humiliations, the traps, the calculated setbacks. Victor's memory still surfaced from time to time, not with bitterness, but as a reminder that true victories don't come from avoiding failure, but from rising again, once, twice, 10 times. In a recent interview, a reporter asked, "Chef Carter, when was the moment everything changed for your career?" Liam paused for a few seconds before answering. "It wasn't one moment, it was many. Every night of silent service. Every time someone told me I wasn't good enough. Every time they tried to stop me. That's when I learned to keep going." The reporter smiled, impressed. "And now, how does it feel to be among the state's top chefs?" Liam exhaled slowly before responding, "I'm only getting started." That night, as he closed down the final station in the kitchen, he stood alone in the empty dining room for a few minutes. He looked around, fully grasping the weight of everything built there. There were no more superiors shouting, no more humiliation. Now there was leadership, there was respect, and most importantly, there was certainty that no one had handed him this position. He had earned it, step by step, hit after hit, service after service. And in the end, what remained wasn't just the title of executive chef. It was the story of someone who, when they tried to break him, learned to cook under pressure. Just like in the kitchen, where fire doesn't just test, it transforms. If you were moved by today's story, leave a like and tell us your story in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next.